Sinceri, and we are talking today about a very sensitive topic.
Yeah.
It's one we normally wouldn't do on a platform like this, but because it's such a prevalent problem and there's so many people that need healing from this, we just felt like it was important to discuss this today. And our hearts are what is to help everyone heal from past hurts.
Yes.
If you've experienced past traumas, we really want you to heal. We've seen it, we've experienced it, we've witnessed it, and we know it not only can happen for others, but it can happen for you. And so today we're talking about sexual abuse, and we're going to go into three reasons why it's so devastating. But we're not just going to talk about the devastation
No.
of it, but we're going to give you a roadmap to begin a healing process.
Yes.
Or perhaps you're in a healing process and it'll just enhance that. So we really know that this is an important topic and it will be helpful for you.
Yes. But a lot of people suffer from this situation. And, when it's not, in the therapeutic world, counseling world, the coaching world, we use the word dealt with. Well, it's not about dealing with it. It's about loving yourself through it and finding the right people to help love yourself through it, which takes a lot of trust. So, on this level, being able to do it this way, this is awesome because you're by yourself. You can be by yourself and watching this and do some processing. And then this could be helpful for your journey to begin it, or if you're already on it, or if you've done a lot of work already, just to have some validation that, you went on the right path, because this is something that really destroys lives.
Yeah. And I want to tell you about a client I had many years ago. He was in his late 30s. He was a man, and he started dealing with a number of issues. He started remembering some memories of being sexually abused by an adult man, and he was around 8, 9 years old. And he was dealing at the time with just severe depression, lots of anxiety attacks. His relationship with his wife, he during his high school years, he acted a lot out sexually and in college. But as his marriage went on, he became what we would call sexually anorexic, in a sense that he just stopped engaging in a sexual relationship with his wife. And all this was hitting him at the same time. And he was really struggling. Over the years, he had some suicidal ideation or thoughts of hurting himself. But during this time, it started to increase. And he came to counseling and he was able to work through the process. And today he's doing so well. And he's reclaimed his marriage. He's reclaimed a healthy sexual relationship with his wife. He's no longer dealing with depression and anxiety. He's actually taken his power back as a man. Even his whole stature is different. It's like he walks with a greater strength, a greater sense of power and masculinity. And I would say that he actually healed from the sexual abuse. That healed ED.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that he doesn't get triggered at some point.
No.
But the difference is how he walks and who he knows he is.
And he's no longer being
Right.
plagued by those particular issues.
Right.
And so we want you to know that there is hope.
Yes.
And there is healing available. Yes. And we believe that you can be totally healed from any experience.
Definitely. And, one of the things that I say about that is that sometimes people think the word healed means I'm never going to be triggered for the rest of my life. Well, if you watch a movie that, you have no idea what's going on, and it's, there's a rape scene or something in it, you will feel some pain, some anxiety, some fear. You will feel compassion for the person on the screen. You will have compassion and empathy for yourself. So it's not that you don't ever feel, because it's very important, but it doesn't mean that it stops the process of putting you all the way back. You just get some emotion about it, but it's not like you're going to be strangled again, you're going to be paralyzed again, or you're going to act out again.
Yeah. So before we get into the three devastating issues that come with sexual abuse. Let's look at some statistics. Sexual abuse statistics in the U.S. Excuse me. 1 in 4 women and 1 of 6 men are sexually abused in their lifetime. That's the Department of Justice released that. That's extraordinary. 25%, 1 out of 4 women have experienced some type of sexual abuse, and 1 out of 6 men.
That's just what's reported.
That's what's reported. It's got,
right.
In 8 of the 10 rape cases, the victims know the attacker. So what we know is that most sexual abuse that occurs actually occurs by people that they know. Yeah. Neighbors, friends, family members, teachers, perhaps in their churches, wherever they experience relationships, that 80% of the time, it's by people that they actually know. Only 28% of the victims, and that goes to what you were saying, Holly Kim, only 28% of the victims report their sexual assault to the police. Yeah. And some don't ever report it. So it's a skewed statistic, because some never talk about it with anybody, with family members. Nearly 6 out of 10 sexual assaults occur in the victim's home or the homes of a friend, relative, or neighbor. Yeah. So what we know is that this is such a prevalent issue, and that sexual abuse is infiltrated so much in our city, in our country, and we wonder why we struggle with so many sexuality issues.
Right, exactly.
You know, when there's sexual trauma, it's going to be acted out in some way if it's not dealt with.
Right.
And it can come out in some type of disorder. If you've ever experienced any type of sexual trauma as a child, you don't really have a category to put that in. You don't have a way of understanding the experience. And what ends up happening is that oftentimes you begin to have sexual identity struggles. Yeah. If a man has been sexually abused by a boy has been sexually abused by another man, most often they will have some type of fantasies about sexual relationships with men.
Right. And the issue here is that we calling it fantasies just to have all of us to be kind of on the same page for a word. But really what it is the part of them that they've kind of hidden away, which we, in our process, we call it the wounded child. But the part of us that is hidden away that we don't talk about, and we kind of pushed it back, it's trying to give us a subconscious message that something's wrong. So it will, here we are living a very heterosexual life, but it's looking at the same sex, which means in that situation, it's trying to give us a signal, something's up. So in this process, if that is hidden, then I'm constantly internalizing my identity. Like, what is going on with me? Why is this happening to me?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a, you really have to understand that our sexual development, normal sexual development, is as we go through our growth process, we get proper education, we get proper parameters about experiences. And when that's violated, everything gets thrown off and it creates sexual confusion. And that brings us into the first devastating issue that goes with sexual abuse is sexual abuse often becomes a secret.
Yeah.
And there's 2 types of secrets in a family system or in our culture. One is a secret is something that no one knows about.
Right.
So a person can experience an incident and never say anything and no one knows about it.
Right.
But the second one is also true too, is a secret can be something that everyone knows about, but no one talks about.
Right. Yeah, I'll go there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And the reason for that is, for B, the reason why we don't talk about it is because we don't want to cause pain for the other person. It actually is a it comes out of love. But sometimes it comes out of fear. I mean, fear and love are the opposite. But in this, most of the time it comes out of love. So I don't want to upset my mom. I don't want to scare them. I don't want my dad to kill that person. So you just bury it. And then sometimes the adults, they don't want to deal with it because it's just too painful to even believe this happened to your child that you adore and love. So it's a secret that gets buried, but it's not forgotten, or we try to forget it. Maybe that's better, huh? We try to forget it. So Dean's exactly right. There's two types of secrets. One, I never tell anyone. And then two is that everyone kind of knows about it, but we never talk about it.
Yeah, there's a sense of, we know this in therapy, is a general rule, is that what's not talked out will be acted out.
It's 100%.
So if I don't talk out something that's I've experienced, then somehow it's going to be acted out in my life.
Yeah.
Most often, whenever we've experienced some type of sexual violation or trauma, we will go to one or two extremes. One will be sexual compulsivity, which means I act out sexually in a lot of different ways.
Could be pornography.
Could be pornography. It could be promiscuity. It could be a whole host of types of acting out. And the other extreme is what we call sexual anorexia.
Yeah.
Which means I'm turning off that aspect of myself because I associate sexual expression with the trauma. And the way I get rid of the trauma is by turning off my sexuality.
Right.
And so there's two extremes that often happen.
Right.
And it's all rooted in the sense of the message that I need to keep this a secret.
Yeah.
And there is this sense of exposure of it, we know could cause a lot of turbulence. And often that's why kids, they don't understand it. They feel ashamed about it. They don't know if their parents can handle it. They may have been told, don't tell anybody that you've experienced this.
Right.
And when that gets internalized and it's not debriefed, it will be acted out in some manner.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else you have. So if you have, I'll wait, see what you got.
Yeah, let's go to the second way that it's devastating for you. It creates lots of shame. Well, go ahead.
No, read it. That was what I was going to talk about.
Yeah. So guilt, the difference between guilt and shame is that guilt is a feeling about something that I have done. If I take $20 from you and I stole it and I feel guilty about it, that's good guilt because I did something to break my value system and I feel bad about the behavior.
That's all. And that's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Because then you have the ability to correct yourself, right from wrong, with what you shouldn't have done versus what you needed to do. And that, really shows that you have some value and that you can change. You can move yourself into the area that is acceptable.
Yeah. And then shame
whole nother ball game.
Is a whole nother ball game. Shame is feeling bad about who I am in my core.
Yeah.
I would describe it as like I have this, if I'm an apple, if you cut open the apple at the very core, it's rotten.
Yeah.
There's like a yucky jello on the inside of me that is, I feel bad about who I am as an individual.
Yeah.
Out of all the different violations that we can experience, sexual violation is the one that carries the most shame.
Yeah.
And it's the most toxic.
Yeah.
And it's the most hidden because of the secret. And that becomes very devastating. And a person can live with that for years and years and years and decades, and sometimes even go to the grave.
Yeah, with the secret.
With the secret.
And the shame.
And carrying the shame.
Yeah. I mean, for me, shame is the devastation of what is the thing that just really cripples us. And so in that part, it's like, if I am internally believe that I am not good, then what I allow to come towards me and be in my life becomes extremely unhealthy. And because why would anybody want me if they really knew? People say if they really knew me, they wouldn't like me. So subconsciously, that shame allows things that are unacceptable in my life. So I may choose people, have friends that aren't very friendly to me. I may have friends that neglect me. I may have relationships at work that they talk about me behind my back. And I kind of know it, but I just put up with it. And it becomes from this root of shame. And it's really, really, this feeling, this thing is not ours. So when someone is sexually abused, it's actually the person that abused us and violated us. It's their shame that they gave us.
Yeah.
So the
There's a
work,
transference,
it's
isn't there?
yes, it's a transference.
And part of healing has to do with transferring it back.
Back. That's right. Giving the shame back, not holding the shame, getting rid of the shame, because it's, you know, what's our, you stole something from us, our innocence, you stole our trust, you stole our sexuality, our identity, our faith, our hope and joy. You gave us, you traded it for shame in that process, in that violation. So when I do the work, and it's hard work. I'm not going to say it's not hard work. You push it out and you give the shame back to them.
Yeah.
Then you receive those things back, and you have a better internal vision of who to trust and who not to trust. Like you have better internal boundaries where you can have better external boundaries, which you accept and not accept.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. The process of healing is the opposite of the violation. In a violation, it's taken on as if it's about me.
Yes.
And the healing process is by externalizing, beginning to tell the story as I remember it. We're wonderfully designed by God as that if we experience trauma that's so overwhelming emotionally that we can't handle it,
right,
we're designed to forget it.
Exactly.
Repress it.
Exactly.
And that's why sometimes people decades later may start remembering certain experiences. It's because they actually have gotten emotionally strong enough to handle it, and it's starting to be brought back to memory. And in it spiritually, it's God saying it's time for us to heal you from this. That's why it's being brought to the surface.
Yeah. And you can end up in a healthy relationship. You've done a lot of work and you end up in a healthy relationship, and then this gets triggered. Another way this gets, are we going for triggers?
No, you're doing good.
Okay. Another way that things get triggered is that, let's say you were abused at 8 years old and you have a child, and that child turns 8. And all of a sudden you have these memories that you didn't remember having. In our process, in the book that we wrote, A Roadmap to the Soul, we talk about this, that in the wounded self, what we have, the wounded self has no sense of time, and it thinks in symbols.
Yeah.
So that's why sometimes you have no memory, you're doing fine, everything's great, and then all of a sudden something gets triggered and you're like, what is that? Where did that come from? Nothing happened to me. Well, something triggered that memory, that it's like it was yesterday, or like it was like 10 minutes ago, and it has no sense of time, just like we're right here, but it was a symbol in front of you that reminded you. It could be a smell, it could be a person, it could be 1,000 things, but it triggers it. Like, don't play with that. Go find somebody that can help love you through this.
Yeah. It's as you reverse the process is externalization, telling the story, giving back what doesn't belong to you. And part of coming out of shame, when you ever experiencing shame, what you do is hide. I mean, the classic story is Adam and Eve. once they ate the forbidden apple,
Mm-hmm.
they said they were ashamed and they hid themselves
Mm-hmm.
from the presence of God, and they begin to cover themselves up. Well, that's the experience of shame, is I
Mm-hmm.
begin to hide from others who I really am, and I begin to cover up or protect myself with a protective layer to enable me not to be hurt again.
Right.
And so the journey is the opposite, is instead of hiding, I begin to bring it to the light.
Yeah.
I find safe people that can love me through it, as Holly Kim said. I begin to tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
I begin to let it go. I begin to release it. I begin to externalize it. I begin to giving up the things that I'm carrying.
Mm-hmm.
And I also start to let go of my protective system, because
Mm-hmm.
it's all about the heart.
Yes.
You know, life is about love, and it's about loving connection. And when I've been violated in a deep way, I begin to guard my heart. I begin to close my heart.
Yeah.
And part of our all of our healing processes is to do the opposite.
Exactly.
It's to start to learn to open up our heart again to life, open our heart to people. And when our sexual violation hasn't been healed, what happens is that we often repeat that violation in our lives over and over again.
Yeah.
So there's almost a compulsivity, which is it's an interesting dynamic. They call it clinically, we call it traumatic bonding. But what traumatic bonding means is that whenever I've experienced a deep hurt, I get attached to that scene.
Mm-hmm.
And there's almost a part of me that compulsively wants to act out that scene over and over and over again. And so if I was violated in some way, I may replay that scene over and over again in different contexts. The name and the faces change, but the experience is the same. And it's almost like a yearning of my part of me is to try to get it out of my system.
Yeah. And it's really like a thing to wake us up. Like we need to be woken up. Like this needs love. This needs care. It's kind of like if you cut your finger and you never take care of it and it gets gangrene. It's screaming, help me. You're going to lose your finger.
Yeah.
It needs love, tender care. You need to find the right person to help you heal it. Will you have a scar? Most definitely. Hopefully you don't lose your finger. So in this process, it's like it's the same thing. It's just internally and it's private, and you get to pick who you get to love you. And if you pick somebody and they don't work, find another one.
Yeah.
I mean, I always talk about that with therapy and churches and stuff. It's like you eat at a restaurant and it's a Mexican restaurant. You just don't go back, and you get food poisoning. You don't go back to that restaurant. That don't mean you give up Mexican food. I mean, you love Mexican food. It's like if you get a bad therapist, a bad life coach, a bad counselor, find another one. Get rid of it, find another one.
Yeah. Let's look at the third reason sexual abuse is so devastating.
Yeah.
Third reason is it violates the deepest part of ourself.
Yeah.
The deepest part of any human being is their sexuality and their spirituality.
Yeah.
And when those parts are violated, it impacts the deepest parts of ourselves. And that's why it's so devastating. I mean, if you think about it physically, if I get a cut on my finger, that's not nearly as devastating as needing open heart surgery, right? Exactly. Open heart surgery is like at the very core of our being. And so it's going to be a lot deeper of a wound to heal. Same with psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually with sexual abuse, is that it violates the very core of our being. And as Holly Kim was saying, that it really takes time, and it takes lots of love, and it takes a process. And that what we want you to know is that you can do it.
Yes.
You can do it.
Yes.
If you're here and you've experienced some type of sexual violation, there is healing available to you.
Yes.
Step number one is that you have to find a safe person, whether it's a professional,
right,
whether it's a friend, whether it's a pastor, whether it's whomever that can walk you through a process of healing. And part of it is just being able to tell your story.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to tell your story to people that can handle it.
Yes. Definitely need people that can handle it.
Yeah, it's very emotionally. I mean, just doing the show, that it probably is going to be triggering
Yeah.
for a number of people that may have not dealt with it. And so it can bring it up, just like watching a TV program that has a scenario that triggers it, and it
Yeah.
can create a lot coming up. Look, it's sexual abuse is a violation that's such a harmful and hateful crime.
Yeah.
And the opposite is healing,
Yes.
is gentleness, love, care, God's spirit. And oftentimes those two parallels, it's interesting, the parallels between sexuality and spirituality, those being the deepest part of ourselves, is when there's often violation on one level, it impacts the other.
Yeah.
Sometimes people that have spiritual issues, the root of it is sexual issues. And sometimes people have struggling with sexual issues, the root is spiritual. They're very connected because it's the deepest part of ourselves. And yet, really entailing healing involves dealing with both of those aspects of ourselves. And there's provision that's available for healing.
Yeah. And, just to testify, I have suffered in this arena and have worked really hard. Unfortunately, I've suffered in many arenas, but that's okay. God is good, and there is healing, and there's lots of hope.
Yes.
And, one of the things that I always said is addiction was not going to win. My perpetrator was not going to win. They were not going to take away what God intended, what he made, and what he had a destiny for me. And so I am going to work hard for the rest of my life that these things will not win me, and that I will become a joyful, loving person with a sound mind, that I do not have fear of man, and the only fear that I have is of my God, which means I respect him and I know that he is trustworthy. So, I just say, go for it. Do what you got to do. Take your life back.
And you truly are a testament for full healing in this area. Yeah, she really is. She's very loving. There's all aspects of the damage that was caused have been reclaimed, empowered. And so I'm honored to be married to you.
Oh, thank you, honey. I am a lucky woman. I do know what a woman is.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed.
There's two resources that I want to share with you. One is called The Courage to Heal. It's a book. And then there's the Courage to Heal workbook. Mm-hmm. We have links in the description if you're interested in that. But this book has been a classic for years and years in terms of how to deal with and recover and heal from sexual abuse.
Yeah.
The writer Laura Davis did a phenomenal job in explaining really the impact that sexual abuse can have on you as a person. And then also she walks you through a process of healing. I've had clients over the years that we've dealt with that have gotten that book, and we've actually walked through the book and helped them really claim their healing. The workbook is just a little more extensive. It actually has exercises, things for you to fill out, questions to answer, and it really walks you through the entire process of healing. So if you've struggled with a past sexual abuse and you really want to recover from that and come out of that, get these books today. You can start with the first one, and if you really like it, then get the workbook. But get them today and just let it validate you and help you walk through this whole process. Mm-hmm. We also have another valuable resource is we did a show about a month ago on trauma triggers, which is just talking about trauma in general, but how to overcome it, how it affects your brain. So if this is an issue that you've been dealing with, we want you to click the trauma trigger icon now, and you'll be able to go straight to that talk, and it'll really help you continue the process of learning on how to fully recover from sexual abuse. So we just bless you and thank you for spending time with us. And we say,
I have a voice.
have a